Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hello.
I am Alisa Everett. I'm a school counselor at Hey, Mama Friends. Oh, excuse me.
Oh,
We have distinguished guests in the room. I'm Alisa Everett. I'm a school counselor at Desert Hot Springs High School. Um, and I want you guys to know that this session is being recorded. I also want to let you know that it is also being moderated by Jody Diaz at Cabot Yurtsa and Dr. Kovats at the District Center. I want to let you know how this morning is going. Well, is it still morning? How this session is going to go. It is actually a pre-recorded workshop that I've created, and we stop intermittently for question, answer, and dialogue. So the most important thing to remember right now is to mute yourselves. And if you have questions, you can put them in the chat. Also, Miss Bibiana Borges will be putting the script in Spanish in the chat as well for those of you who need Spanish. And feel free to address questions that you may have along the way as they happen, and we can address them when we pause. Today's activity is specifically about empowering students of color in our district and in public school in general. So I think I dotted all I's and crossed all T's. Let me see if I can find it. We love technology. Oh, I got
Welcome
it. I got it. Okay, here we go. And we're going live.
to School Daze, an information session about empowering Black and African American students in the public school system. My name is Alisa Everett, and I'm a school counselor at Desert Hot Springs High School. I've been in education for 22 years, and this workshop is my humble offering to parents about what actually works. In my experience, I've seen both sides of the coin, and I want to impart to you proven and effective ways to advocate for your child in this maze that is called public education. That's why I call this workshop School Daze, because I know at times it can feel overwhelming, and many parents tend to shy away from or avoid getting involved in school-related matters until they absolutely have to. I have a background in urban public education and in juvenile justice, specifically corrections, and I've seen a lot. The turning point came for me when I returned to California, only to find out that the graduation requirements hadn't changed significantly since I finished high school back in the 80s. What has changed is that we have so much access to technology, but there's a gap that still remains between Black and African American students and their peers. The demographics in our community are unique, but the outcome for our students is on par with what I've seen elsewhere and with the national model. Throughout this presentation, there will be pauses for questions and answers and an open dialogue and discussion with me and the moderators. Feel free to use the chat because we are moderating in the chat. And the purpose of me recording this is to make sure that the information is uniformly distributed and so that I don't leave out crucial points. Creating this presentation sent me into a deep dive on recent articles and publications. I wanted to review with you based not solely on my personal experiences and opinion, but to see what was out there in academia and what the research says on the subject. Throughout this presentation, you'll hear me refer to articles and studies, and I've added links at the end for you to look at. I also consulted the work of the experts and sought out data from the Pew Research Center in Washington, D.C. I want you to know that it's not lost on me that other underrepresented groups are experiencing issues as it relates to equity, identity, and fairness in our education system. And this is in no way an attempt to corner the market on the topic, but the fact remains that Black and African American students are still at a disadvantage and have been at a disadvantage historically. And that is why this work matters. In education, we frequently use a term called disproportionality. The definition of disproportionality is one group's representation in a particular category that exceeds expectation and differs substantially from the representation of others. And it has been proven that Black and African American students, boys in particular, are disproportionately represented in special education, in disciplinary referrals, in suspensions, in school arrests, and expulsion. Now, there's this new term in our lexicon, and it's called cancel culture. It's this belief that something that the popular society doesn't agree with or like is canceled. Many folks are of the opinion that this isn't canceling, but calling into account the many ways in which other voices and cultures have been historically excluded to the point where now there is a voice to the not so pretty truth. Accountability is not shaming. It's not shaming to bring facts to light that have been omitted in the history books. Most of what we consider to be Black and African American culture that is distinct to our history in this country was canceled a long time ago. Cancel culture is when you make it illegal for people to keep their native language. Cancel culture is when you make it illegal for people to worship their own God. Cancel culture is stigmatizing and ghettoizing, I know that's not a word, I made it up, traits and behaviors of a group and encouraging assimilation. Things like wearing your hair in braids or locks, for example. They want when another culture encourages assimilation to the point of eliminating a culture for the sake of fitting in. And as a result, today there's a lack of knowledge and appreciation for Black and African American culture, and this can manifest itself on our campuses. Black culture, African American culture is typically not considered valid. I mean, let's just call it what it is, right? And this is in part because we frequently and erroneously compare our culture to other cultures and communities with more visible traditional practices, such as traditional dress or language or music. And many times we neglect to acknowledge that being a Black person in America, we've got some traditional and cultural nuances that we have that haven't been validated, whether it's how we talk, how we identify with one another, and how we interact. And for a long time, the education system has not acknowledged it. We have actually been undervalued and disvalued in this way. So there's a lot of
Okay, I want to stop sharing here for a second just so that we can unpack this. I know it's a lot of information, and y'all didn't get up this morning to sign on to get a lecture from Miss Everett. But what I wanted to do as part of this overall presentation is give you some foundational background information, because the goal of an empowered parent is an informed parent. So I want to pause here for a second to invite you to the chat or to unmute yourself with any questions or comments or concerns that you have at this time. There will be other stops, by the way, so this we can keep going if everybody's good, or we can stop here for a moment. I'm going to take your silences. ¿Tienes preguntas para mí?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry. Is this gonna be shared to other parents publicly, like through the Palm Springs Unified School District? Okay.
My understanding is that this recording is going to be made available. We're recording right now, and the
Okay.
Cambio group is going to put it all together. Maybe they can like edit out about 3 pounds right here for me, but yes, this will be made available. In addition, Miss Borquez
Yeah.
is translating, and I'm hoping that when we do it, the recorded version, it'll go across the feed.
Oh, okay. And is this I forgot what question I was gonna ask. It was very important, but I forgot. I think it's involving like this. Are they gonna have like clubs about this during in school? Are they gonna start implementing in this in the school?
Well, this is more of a parent thing, and as far as
Oh,
implementation, we
okay.
kind of get to the part about how we can make this happen on our campuses towards the
Okay.
end. It's a build up. Like I wanted to give you guys foundation first. We're going to get into the nuts and bolts of it here shortly. But thank you for your questions. Did I see
Oh,
a hand raised from Dr. Sweezy over there? Wait, I'm trying to look.
Yeah, I
mm,
was I was just going to add that just last night, I saw a really interesting example of cancel culture. So it stuck in my head and just thought I'd share it with the group. I'm a fan, my wife and I are fans of the TV show Top Chef, where chefs compete against each other. And the chefs are in Portland. And for this episode, they went out and they sampled all of these different Pan-African dining experiences and food from all over the world, but really from the African diaspora. And the chefs all said, I know French cuisine, I know Italian cuisine, why don't I know African cuisine? And I just thought that was a really great example. People who are professional chefs, spend their lives cooking, feel as though there's a whole world that really has been part of that cancel culture. So I just, because it's so fresh in my mind, I just watched it last night. I just thought I would share that.
And I dropped that little nugget in as an afterthought because I really think that the term is overused, but it's elimination culture as it relates to Black and African American culture. And that's just a side conversation for another day, because I could roll up my sleeves. We can have a long talk about that. But we're going to get to the point. Okay. But yeah, our culture has essentially been what happens to Black and African American kids on our campuses, and even Chicano and Latino kids on our campuses, is different parts of their cultures that have been colonized are removed. And so as educators, when we interface with those kids, that's why you get questions like why we have Black History Month, why we have Women's History Month, because our history was eliminated, dude. We're trying to go write it back up here for y'all to read it. Okay, but I'm going to keep going, Dr. Sweezy, because you know my attention span. We're going to work with my attention span today. But if anybody else has questions, please put them in the chat. Ms. Diaz and Dr. Kovatz are there, and so am I. When I push and play, I'm really reading the chat.
Research and discussion on what we call the achievement gap. It's just that when social class is equal, that means when you take disproportionality out of the equation, our students are still historically disadvantaged, even when compared to their white, Latinx, and Asian counterparts. So the achievement gap is actually an opportunity gap, because the gap widens as long-term effects on the opportunities for our students have when they become adults. This is why there's a strong need for our public school system to be proactive in how we can serve our students in the faces of these obstacles. The term systemic racism refers to all the systems in place that can make everything that much more difficult and complicated for Blacks and African Americans to navigate. This slide shows the disparities in job and careers, as well as financial stability and even health. So every aspect of what we consider life can be tainted. It's all the more important that we empower our students with the best educational foundation. Education is one of those things that can help our kids have a firm footing to combat some of the built-in biases and obstacles. It's not going to eliminate it. I mean, who are we fooling? But it will arm our students with what they need. So equity is really not about taking from others, but more about a level playing field. And education is not perfect, but with an empowered parent and student relationship, you can help your child maximize his or her potential. And now for the good news. I know you're like, Ms. Everett, all this data is so bleak. I just feel like it's important that we have like a strong footing and understanding about where this all started. A lot of people take it personal, that they feel like failures as parents. There's a lot of stuff in the way, y'all, a lot. But here's the good news. In spite of what the data shows, I've personally witnessed the impact of proactive parent and school relationships. So initially, I thought it was because of my own upbringing. Back in the 80s, my mom was quite the force to be reckoned with. And I now know that I received a lot of special treatment because of who she was and how she moved in our society, in our small community. She, though, made sure that all kids had the same opportunities as her daughter did. And everybody in our school knew it. So 2013, I come back to California and I'm working up in 29 Palms. This is the first time I'm experiencing as an educator the impact of proactive parenting. Military parents have a different level of availability, and it was reflected in how the students and staff interacted. Before that, I only read about it in journals, but this is the first time I actually witnessed it. And I want to share with you what I learned and how we can implement some very basic actions to help our students. There's just so much to do in the day to day and the high level of trust that the schools, we believe the school's going to do right by our kids. But here are 3 very practical ways that you can help ensure that happens. We're going to talk about knowing who to trust, establishing parent networks, and using what's in place. 3 very simple steps that I think can help you and your students be more successful in the public school setting. So it goes without saying that I've witnessed a lot of combative relationships between parents and schools. And many times it's the result of an unresolved situation that's kind of gone toxic, So one of the most important things to know when interacting and engaging with your child's school is who can you trust? And do you know the difference in an adversary, an ally, and an accomplice? I would also like to throw advocate in there, even though I didn't put it in the slide. We're going to have a sidebar about advocates. By definition, an adversary is an opponent. So when we look at the school and the people who work at the school as adversaries, it sets the tone for conflict. And I know this is a two-way street, but for the most part, everyone should be on the same team, not opponents. When there are triggering events, it's an ally that you want to seek out. This is a person or even an organization that helps others. Typically, allies are operating in the interest of the greater good, but it's important to remember that because it's for the greater good, not necessarily for your good or your students' good, but for the greater good. So sometimes when you have alliances and you meet with allies, you have to understand that sometimes they have multiple irons in the fire and their goal is for the greater good. The third category on this slide is an accomplice. Now, the term accomplice, we think of it in legal terms. And when I say legal terms, I mean illegal terms, but it's really someone who helps you accomplish your goals. This is the person who's helping you and your child directly. And sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad. The point of this is to give you an understanding of who is who. And to know that these people aren't bound by a position. The principal at your child's school can be your biggest ally, but remember that he or she is working for the greater good of the school. Sometimes it's a secretary or a custodial staff. They might be your accomplice. This might be the person who tells you, you need to come up to the school today. They might know your child from the community or from sports or see your child in unstructured activities like passing or, something recreational or even in the cafeteria. And a lot of times they might be the ones looking out on your child's behalf. I'm going to step out on faith and say that there aren't any true adversaries on a campus in the sense that none of us is your opponent. When confronted with negative interactions, it's really important to seek allies and accomplices because chances are they are greater in number than adversaries. A proactive communication strategy gives your son or daughter the same advantage I had in school. People, and by people I mean adults, would mind their behavior in my presence. And at that time, it seemed like a bad thing. But in light of some of the things we're seeing going on around the country, it's better for your student when a school staff knows that you are available. So working in close proximity to the military base showed me that staff was aware of whose parents could come up there at a moment's notice. I would watch adults say, don't say that around so-and-so, you know who his mom is. As it relates to your child, this is actually a good thing because when you consider the alternative, you're sending your child to school to get an education, and proactive parenting can increase the likelihood of that happening.
Okay, I just want to unpack this little part for a brief moment because I think it's important to reiterate that a lot of parent-school interaction activities focus on adversarial or negative interactions. And this was a good dialogue in our previous section. But what I am really working on now is operating from a position of let's start positive. Let's empower parents with positive people that they can touch bases with that can be there on their behalf. I want to really reiterate that it starts at the beginning of creating and establishing relationships with the grown-ups who are in charge of your kids. It's called in loco parentis, and we take that very seriously, that I am responsible for your child pretty much from the time they step off your porch to the time they step back on it. That's how we're trained. Now, you may have moments, or you may believe that something's wrong. You may have a negative history with the school, or have your own personal negative school relationship. The whole purpose of today is to help you create a positive school relationship, because the thing about the adversarial situations is, if you go to Vaughn's and you get a bad grape, you don't pick up the phone and call corporate. You go straight to the produce director or whoever you see on the floor. So when there are issues at the school, a lot of times it's like, oh, let me call the district office, let me call the superintendent, let me call somebody else. But I want to encourage parents in that moment that the best place to start in a conflict is at the site. Your school site staff are there to address your concerns, and they have a more intimate understanding of it. But it's because of our histories of engaging with schools. And this is my personal theory. It has no data to defend it. But there's this point backwards in education, right? In high school, I say, oh, the ninth graders don't know how to act right because the middle schools didn't teach them. And in middle school, they go, oh, the sixth graders are off the chain because elementary let them get away with murder. And in elementary, they go, oh, if they were raised right. I'm going to tell you guys that this is the origin of the negative school home relationship. It's the blame game. It is our responsibility as employees who work with your children to take care of your children and to educate your children. And if ever there's a time that you feel that's not happening, it's best to address it on site, literally on site. And I wanted to interject also that I put a poll in the chat. And I'm really 100% of the respondents have a person at their child's school that they trust. That's awesome. Our last group, we were only in the 70s. So that makes us feel good as school employees, because that's what we're striving for. Not just today, but every day. That's what we're striving for. So the next thing I want to focus on is showing you the tools of the trade. So if you do feel like you just don't have enough connection with school, I'm going to show you the technology that we use that you can use also. Are there any questions before I move on? All right, let's get
Actually, I just have a statement because
yes.
I had issues with my son. Well, he actually had bullying issues before at this elementary school he was going to, and I did try to address the situation at the school site, but I feel like nothing has been done. So I had to go to the actual school district to get it handled, and that's when they finally took care of it.
And
Because go ahead.
I was
Oh,
gonna say, I appreciate that you tried it at the site first.
yeah,
That's all we can hope for and all we can ask for. And bullying is such a multi-layered school issue. And there are so many moving parts to it. But the other thing that happened, and I mean, I'm glad that you started with the site, because if
yeah,
you start at the site first and you find yourself at the district level, there's you've left a paper trail. You know what I mean?
yeah,
In my community, we call that receipts. You have receipts where
yeah.
you tried to handle it one way and you tried to handle, and that's all we can ask for, is that you give us a chance to correct it on our end. But we get it. That's your child.
Yeah.
When you say a chance, what you mean is 4.5 minutes and counting
Mm,
if you ain't got nothing to do. And schools move slow. It's really bureaucratic, the school process these days. And we are a pretty sizable district. So I do appreciate that you did try it on the school site first.
yeah, I did. And then that's why it took like 3 times for me to go back and tell him, you know what, I can't take this no more. That I feel like nothing's getting done. Because he was in the same class as my son, and that's why would they, why would they transfer him to that class for if they knew the situation? But they were telling me that it wasn't easy for them just to switch him over to another teacher because it's a long process. But I'm like, this kid keeps picking on my son. And at that time he had a messed up leg. He was in a cast and he kept taking his crutches. I'm like, what if he made my son get hurt again? And that's going to be, on the school, right? And it's not going to be our fault when we told him that he's been getting picked on by the same kid. And this is the same kid he was getting picked on before, like I think third and fourth grade. No, second and third grade, and I'm like, this needs to stop. Something has
And
to be done.
and there are layers to that. We talked in the last group about making sure there's a smoother transition as our students
Yeah,
move from school to school, and on the elementary level as they move from classroom to classroom, because it is a big moving part, the school
yeah,
system. But
I understand.
as a parent, your number one responsibility and your number one concern is your son or daughter. And that's where the allies, the advocates, and the
Mhm.
accomplices come in handy. You know, something as simple as a seat change or anything,
Yeah,
just give you some immediate attention to your concern.
yeah.
Yeah, I
They
think,
which they did. They finally did, but after the fact that I went to the school district, that's when they decided to switch him to the front where the teacher can keep an eye on him and have my son further away from him. That's what they
yeah.
did.
And
But
that
that,
reinforces the belief that you guys have to go to the district office to get us to do anything on the school level. And what we're striving
yeah,
for at this event, and just in general, one of my personal mantras is I don't want a parent to have to go to
yeah.
the district. I want us to handle it in house. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
each campus is like a house, and I don't want you to take. I want to be able to fix it where we broke it. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna
Hmm.
finish up so we can have an open dialogue. I do appreciate that question or that
Okay, you're
comment.
welcome. Yeah, you're welcome.
Happening. Now, I know I kind of glanced over accomplices, but it's safe to know that teachers fall in all categories. Ideally, your child's teachers are your allies. And you should understand that as full as their plates are and as full as their classrooms are, they're trying to work for the greater good. So if you need something specific for your kid, you got to use what's in place. And that brings me to my next point, the tools of the trade. You know, we are in an era of technology, and there are a bunch of ways for you to be involved digitally. Most schools have social media accounts. There's email, there's parent and student communication portals. In our district, we use Student View and Parent View. So let me just say this. I'm glad my parents didn't have the most up-to-date and accurate grade information on me at their fingertips, because there was times, you know, I might have fallen short. Parent View can be downloaded to your cell phone, and it's a direct link to us. In Parent View, you can communicate with the teachers, see your child's attendance and assignments in real time. Now, is it always up to date? Not necessarily. And there's plenty of room for human error. But the more parents use this tool and share the accountability with school staff, the better it is. It's only as efficient as the person who is using it. And I highly recommend downloading the app and making a practice of checking it on a regular basis. This is a sample of how proactive measures impact all the students, not just your sons and daughters. The more that we know parents are checking for accuracy, the more we're going to keep it up to date. It's kind of like cleaning up your house when you know you're having company. Parent View, if I know a lot of people are using it, it's going to encourage me to keep it up to date. It's going to, you're going to have company. You know you're going to have somebody. This slide shows you screenshots of how it looks on the desktop and on the phone. And you can find the link to download it to Apple or Android devices for free. So I'm a school counselor, and a lot has been said about school counselors and secondary school teachers as it relates to preparing our students for college. There are stories that can be told, and they're not always pretty. In fact, as a school counselor, a lot of times in these meetings, we find that a lot of people went into the profession because they didn't feel like their counselor prepared them. They didn't feel like they had the right answer. My cousin's school counselor told her after she was admitted into a very prestigious college or university that she wasn't really cut from the right cloth to attend that college or university. I don't have to tell y'all, my mama went up to the school. And it was in another district, but she had to let it be known that, you know, that's like being a dream killer. Oftentimes, Black and African American students and families feel super excluded from the process. And there's the belief that school staff know something that the families don't. So the California College Guidance Initiative is a one-stop shop that essentially allows you, the parent, to access it. And at your fingertips is everything you need to make empowered and informed decisions regarding your son or daughter's secondary school experience. This site allows you to have a resource with selecting classes. It helps you enhance your child's academic profile. It helps you prepare for financial aid. It helps you do career interest inventory and career search. It's really a cool site, and we're gonna explore it just a little bit. And it's free. So you can sign on here and create an account with your son or daughter's state testing ID number, and you can see your son or daughter's progress. The last thing I want to talk about is parent networks and resources. There is strength in numbers, y'all, and it is really important that parent groups have the same influence and power on our campuses that they did back in the day. I know you guys all remember Harper Valley PTA. I'm probably telling on myself, maybe you don't. But there is power in parent groups. In our district, we do have the parent advisory, the African American Parent Advisory Committee, APAC. They have a Facebook page. Our district also offers a family engagement center. In fact, that's how you are coming into this program right now, through the Family Engagement Center. And then there's all kinds of social media groups and communities you can create or be a part of. One of the schools I used to work at, we had a very strong band program. So I used to call our school a band school. The band boosters and the band parents were the most influential group of adults on that campus. So you know, as soon as money came, it went to the band. As soon as activities came, the band had preference because of the power of the parent group. This also happens with sports, maybe football booster clubs or sports clubs or cheer moms or soccer dads. It's really important to link up with other parents because there is a strength in numbers. And when a school knows that this group of parents wants this and that group of parents wants that, it gives you bargaining and leverage ability in all decisions. I highly recommend, if there isn't a parent group or network in the school that you're in, that you guys create one. But I believe that our Family Engagement Center and our African American Parent Advisory Committee are two quick places to start. So in summary, this is super simple. I want you guys to know your people on that campus. I want you to form alliances and networks, and I want you to use what's in place. These are three really easy, quick things. It doesn't have to be complicated. The idea is to make sure as a parent you feel comfortable enough to approach the school about anything, not just when things are good and not just when things are bad, but on a regular and consistent basis, because it is a proactive and involved parent that allows your child to have a more successful experience at school. These are the articles, but before I get there, I also want to add that's important that we are our children's cheerleaders. It is important to celebrate their successes and to be by their side during their struggles in school. It's important that our students know that we are there for them in all circumstances. Make sure that you're lavishing your child with that positive reinforcement. Make sure that you have established with your child that you will be there to help him or her in any way you can. We work. I get it. Some of us work far away from school and can't just stop and be to the school immediately. That's what all the digital opportunities are about. And that's why we are like a very email-y school. So in Parent View, you can email teachers, you can email the counselor so that you can have someone. Email one of your allies or accomplices when you can. Because the idea is that your son or daughter should be able to walk around a campus knowing that my mom is taken care of or my dad has taken care of my needs. And if I need anything, I can go to this ally or this accomplice. And I should steer clear of triggering situations. I want to share the article.
Okay, are there any questions or comments? I'm going to pull up the articles and I'm going to pull up the survey because one of the things we have to do today is the survey. Jody, do you have it or do you need me to put it in the chat? There's a survey in the chat we want you guys to complete before today is out. And we also are going to have parting words from our new superintendent Dr. Sweezy, there is a pre-recorded, where is it? I have it. I'm sure I do.
You have it.
I know. I do. I'm looking at it. Okay. So we're going to do, I want to do question and answer first in case there's anything or any point that we've missed. And then we'll go to the survey and the video. That's the order. Questions, comments, concerns? Coach Reggie, I see you in there on mute. And I feel as though you should just say, hey, hey, Tristan. Hey.
How you doing, Miss Everett?
I am doing well. It is great to hear your voice. I'm doing well, Coach Reggie. So the survey is in the link. You can just click that on your device. We're asking everybody to complete that survey. And we're just going to keep posting it because our chat is flying really fast. And but if there are any questions or comments, this is a good time. And let me see, how long is this before I push play?
Well, now, Miss Everett, we know in our last session there were quite a few.
I know, and I have all, you know, I can talk to fill the space, but I am, yes, Mama Franz, thank you. Come through, boo-boo.
Hi, everybody. I hope everybody's doing great. Great to see you all. Have a quick question. How easy or difficult is it to start a parent group? If you have like a specific need, how long does that process take, and who do I call to start that process?
Well, I'm glad you said that because what I really want is for it to be organic. You know, we all grew up in the village. We're not the village people, but there was never, I'm trying, Simone, I'm on my best behavior. There, you don't need permission. You know, there's a meme out there that says, check your child's student view as much as you check Facebook. Facebook and all these different social media mechanisms give you permission to create your own group. You know what I mean? Like, we shouldn't have to give you permission to chime in for your child. But I will say, having said all that, would I prefer it? Yes. I see you, Jody. Give me 3 seconds. But with the Parent Engagement Center, for example, and APAC, those are just 2 I know about. There are more. And it's important. In the last discussion we talked about, if you know your child's interests and strengths and weaknesses, that might guide your group association. If Tristan played soccer, you'd probably spend a lot of time with the other soccer parents, and there are, you know, soccer groups and soccer teams and soccer Facebook pages. And so that's how you start the dialogue. Sometimes misinformation gets bred there, but that's how you come to the school and say, Miss Everett, I heard such and such. Jody, stop me before I get off topic because I know you had something to say.
I was just going to say to Mrs. France, if you have, you know, you want to start a group and you've got an interest and you feel like it would be something that you'd love to get started, please go to your school, either to your ally that you already have at that school or one of your administrators at the school and say, hey, can I have a minute of your time? I'm really interested in starting a parent group regarding, I don't know, English language curriculum, whatever it is. That's
K-pop. We have a K-pop group on campus because there's a group of kids who love K-pop. And so the mom has started the K-pop club so that her daughter and the other kids who like K-pop can be in a club. And that's kind of like a back channel because it's a district, it's a school club, but she could do like on the side K-pop moms club, for example. So that's the kind of like, I have a lot of Girl Scout moms who are my coworkers and colleagues and they're troop leaders. It's the same way, like you don't need permission to advocate for your child. What you need is help for those times when you're away or those times when you're at work. Or, you know, we understand that the way the desert spreads out, you may be at this end and Tristan may be at that end. And you need to know that Tristan has a circle around him until you get to that end. And so it's about creating those networks on your own and organically as well as through the school, because we are here to help y'all. We like and want parent groups. We welcome that. We welcome holding meetings on our campuses. You know, there are just things we want to do to make school the way it used to be when you would get there and the mamas would be having a group in the back. Like, we want that. I love to pull up and see a bunch of parents in the parking lot just outside parlaying. We welcome that. Okay, we're on survey.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
I got a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know if they have a parent teacher group? Because I know at Two Lunch they have parent teacher groups. Do you
Yes,
know if they have it at middle schools as well in
yes.
high school?
And that's a whole nother conversation. Now, let me tell you something, Ms. Guerin. This is the issue. Everybody in education knows that PTAs and PTAs, PSTAs, we call it Parent Student Teacher Association where I'm from, but now I'm in Palm Springs. They are like this in elementary school. And then in middle
Wow.
school, they get like this. And then in high
They
school,
need to get bigger. They need to
well,
have more.
okay, so sidebar, because now I'm about to cut into the time. What happens
Yeah.
is, as your child gets older, parents
Mm-hmm.
tend to think, and guardians, well, he or she is a big boy now or a big person now. They can handle it. And we, on the high school level, we getting parent involvement is like pulling teeth. I had never seen real parent involvement on the high school level. I worked at a middle school before as well.
That might change.
I won't. Well, so I saw it when I worked up by the military base because military parents do not play. I had only read about active parent groups like that in real life. I mean, yeah, we had the band boosters,
Yeah.
we had the football moms, but I am telling you, it's a different kind of organization that they run up there that I'd only read about it in books.
Oh
But
wow.
in
Mm-hmm.
elementary school, the older the child gets, the more the parent lets go of the reins. And what I want you to know right now is that's when you need to grip the reins a little tighter because
Yeah.
you've got a young person transitioning into adolescence and adulthood, and that's when they need your guidance the most.
Mm-hmm. I
And
agree.
I tell every parent in high school, there's no such thing as bad parents. You've got this other little mini adult in your house, and you're trying to mitigate how much freedom to give them
Mm-hmm.
and how much direction to give them and when to hold on and when to let go. And you believe that the high school staff, like we're the dragon slayers, like we're the lion tamers, like we got a chair and a whip, and I can get your child in, and we cannot do it alone.
Yeah.
We have to do it together. And
Yes.
parenting doesn't end, and our jobs don't end. I had a principal who used to say to us, "I remember what you wrote on your letter of introduction. I remember what you wrote when I asked you what your theory of education was," and that I hold myself to. But we want parents to not be scared of high school. And not be scared of middle school. Middle school is a
Well,
gray area. Come on, Jody, come on, because you know we.
I-
tell you, I'm one of
I
those
was gonna-
parents that might try to make a group in high school or middle school
Well,
because
bring your friends. Bring your friends.
I will.
In the words of the poet Calvin Broadus, you may know him as Snoop Dogg. It ain't no fun if the homies can't have them. Bring your friends. Yes, I
Yes.
quoted Snoop Dogg. Don't be surprised. Yes, Jody.
And it would be great if that's a universal message to high school staff.
I see you, Lasagna. You know I tried. I tried to be a good girl. So I want to remind you to complete the survey, and I want to make sure that we play Dr. Sweezy's closing message at this time. Miss Guerin, I'm not kidding. Each one bring a friend.
Yeah, I will. Trust me. I am very sociable. I'm very talkative. I will bring them.
Well, there are
I'll
strength
bring
in
it to the
numbers.
middle school.
High
Yes.
school parents feel like we're
high
the
school.
experts, and we feel like
No, they
we need that
shouldn't.
parent.
Parenting never ends. Like I'm one of those parents that are on top of my kids with school, especially since they're doing online schooling. I'm on top of them because I was like trying to see if I was giving my son a test, but he felt completely bad because the first week of school, online school started. He was doing already bad. I'm like, why are you doing already bad? And he wasn't doing his work. That's when I started being on top of it, like completely, literally sitting there watching my kids do their work. Because if I leave or use the restroom, I can hear them playing in the background. I'm like, you guys need to be on top of your stuff. Stop getting distracted. Because I have two, one middle school, one in elementary still. Third grade and a sixth grader, and that's why I know that parenting never ends.
Yeah.
Even though they're in high school, I'm still gonna treat my kid until until he's out of my house. That's my rules is under my house. He has to be, you know. That's the only time he will stop hearing from me is if he's out of my house, but I still will be there no matter what, matter how old he is. And I will still smack my child even though he's in his 20s or something. If he's wrong, out of line, I will smack him.
Well, but we want to shift away from if he's wrong. I want it to become a natural, normal conversation all the time. We see parents when everything's good and when everything's bad. I'm talking about that middle parent. Be familiar with the campus, and it's less intimidating. I'm so thankful, y'all. I appreciate the dialogue and the discussion. I just, those of you who are meeting my voice for the first time don't understand that usually by now somebody would have muted me, but I got the mute button today, so I don't have to hit mute. I do want to remind you to do the survey, and we're gonna close out with Dr. Sweezy. Let's cross our fingers for Lisa and technology. Dr. Sweezy, before I play Dr. Sweezy, is there anything you wanted to interject?
No, just thank you for a great session, and it's nice to hear the discussion from everybody and the questions and the commitment to really being involved at the school. So it was great. Thank you.
I appreciate y'all.
Thank you for attending Palm Springs Unified's first Equity Community Conference. And a big thank you to Ruby Rivera, the Family Engagement Center, district staff and volunteers from all across our district, as well as the Palm Springs Unified Anti-Racist Coalition. You were able to participate in some amazing sessions, sponsored and hosted by district staff members and many of our important community equity work partners. I'm very proud to be able to continue to lead this work in Palm Springs Unified. We are at a very critical time for our district and, in fact, for our country. We will become an anti-racist organization that we are all so very, very proud of. Our school board supports the deep equity work and the honest conversations, much like what took place here today in this conference. We have an equity policy and clear, measurable objectives that we will report on publicly. Thank you for your commitment to this work. Thank you for being here on a Saturday, and I cannot wait to continue these conversations with all of you. Thank you.
And thank you all. I'm just going to repeat what Dr. Sweezy said, and thank all of y'all for participating today. I want to thank my moderators. I feel really special because I had important people in here, and I want to thank my translator, especially Miss Bibiana. And each session, I wish we could have had all y'all together, but I like the energy and the flow from both sessions. But it's time to go, y'all. I gotta go make my daddy some oatmeal. Y'all don't want to go? Y'all want to stay with me? Y'all want to know the oatmeal recipe? I put brown sugar. I put a half
I'm
a
trying
stick
to
of
find
butter.
the survey.
Oh, the survey. It's right there in the chat, right under. If you see where Jody just posted, Jody Diaz, to everybody, we have to keep posting it because the chat is flowing with the translation as well. And if you click on the bit.ly link, it'll take you right to the survey.
Thank you, Miss Everett. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm so glad. I appreciate all your input too. We really
you're
like to
welcome.
hear parent voices. We really do.
But trust me, I mean what I said. I will have a parent group in middle school and high school.
I am a way shower. I'm here to show you the way.
Yes, I'll be here. I'll be asking you for help if I need it.
I'll be there.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you, ladies. Bye.
Bye. Have a good afternoon.
You too. Bye-bye.
Turn off this light. Mr. King.
Just a little comment. I was told when this session had already started, the closed captioning is not going to be available in the